Okay, Jack, why do you think fans love Wanda and Vision and their relationship so much?
I think that fans are loving Wanda and Vision together because of the way that they delight in each other's company. There's so much respect there and so much support. They want to do right by each other, and they're in it together. In this new town, in this environment, and I think fans are finding that really winning, and they're rooting for them.
Nice. Explain the genesis of this crazy idea of WandaVision.
So WandaVision was a concept that I heard about around the Marvel offices. It was Kevin Feige's idea to find a way to blend sitcoms with Wanda and Vision, and I thought, how in the world can I get on that show? Because that sounds totally insane. And how would you ever even begin to do that? So they had a lot of ideas and visuals and kind of hopes and dreams for it. And I was invited to pitch. And what I brought to it was like an overarching structure, a larger story for what was going on, as well as sort of, I mean, now that episode 4 has dropped, the notion of episode 4 of sort of stepping out of the sitcom space and following Monica and Jimmy and Darcy and what their investigation is like. That was part of my initial pitch. And I would say sort of like the headline of my pitch was, how do we find a way to kind of slam these two worlds together structurally, tonally, and still have it be satisfying and still have characters that you care about and want to follow.
Nice. Where do we find Wanda and Vision as the series kicks off?
So at the top of WandaVision, we pick up with Wanda and Vision in this new town of Westview. They've just gotten married. They're new to the community. They want to make friends and want to fit in and want to be quote unquote normal. And that proves to be a challenge for two enhanced people such as they are.
What is the benefit of this story being shared via Disney Plus versus on the big screen?
I think what's so special about this project being on Disney Plus is this is a show about television shows. And it is something that plays with our love of television, our viewership, how we consume content. So that sort of thematic is at play. So it makes sense that it would be in this episodic form, and it would be something that you can watch from your couch the way that we watched all of these sitcoms from our couches over the decades. And then it also, the format of it, the way that we play with aspect ratio and the way we play with the cinematic look of it. It's a lot of it just feels right on television in that sort of viewing mode. And then when it, the moments where it breaks open into more of a cinematic aesthetic, it's so like refreshing. You sort of feel like you're bursting out of a box. I think it's perfect for streaming for Disney Plus. It's just, yeah, it's great.
This was your first time writing for Wanda and Vision. In researching these characters, what stuck out to you about their personalities and behavior?
So in researching in the comics, and also even more so in the MCU, learning about Wanda and Vision, I think what stuck out for me, for Wanda was very much her sadness, and also not just from the pain of her past, but I think her sadness at being misunderstood. I think there are moments that we see her in the MCU where it appears that she feels like it's almost futile to try and connect, or to try and help anyone understand who she really is. And I think that's what Vision does provide for her, is he is interested in knowing the complete woman and knowing what's inside her heart and her mind. And he sees past the powers, I think, because he is such an unusual, creature himself. He's a synthezoid, and he's sort of questing on his own, exploration of what he is and who he is and how his self intersects with humanity. So I think that she, is always kind of trying to find her place in humanity, and so is he. And they find a comfort in each other. And that's very much what we wanted to carry forward into the series.
The series spans the decades from classic sitcoms of the 1950s to those of the early 2000s. Can you explain how the scripts evolved, how the style of dialogue changed with each episode?
So we knew that we would be moving through the various time periods and the various eras of television. And we when we mapped out what episode belonged to which era of television, the writers of each of those episodes, it sort of did a deep dive. I mean, we all watched, a million shows together, but I tasked them with being experts in the tropes and style and like everything from visual to wardrobe to really mostly, turns of phrase. And so they wrote with that expertise, and then we just, tried to like dial that up with every episode as best we could without becoming kind of heavy-handed with it. We always wanted the texture of it to feel accurate and not like parody. On the actual page, we researched, we pulled scripts from all these different shows from the WGA, and we would mimic whatever the format was of the time. So our, the pilot episode has the same screenwriting format as an episode of Dick Van Dyke or Leave It to Beaver or the Donna Reed Show. And it wasn't necessary, but it really seemed to help everybody get on the same page, because all of these, from when, our director came on board to the department heads, everybody knows what a contemporary screenplay looks like. I mean, it's quite jarring to kind of know you're doing a Marvel project, but you look down and it looks like it's like an old-timey sitcom. I mean, the only thing that we didn't do is we didn't type it up on a typewriter, which would have been cool, but there was no time for that.
Been cool. Do you have a favorite era that you found the most fun to work on?
I loved working in the 50s, I think, because that was sort of the origin of the idea, was WandaVision in black and white, multicam 50s sitcom. So it was really, being in that space felt very right. And it also, it was fun to sort of dig into like the expressions of that era, and especially writing for Paul and his sort of taking what we know from the American sitcoms and like adding that special spice of, Britishisms, which he was very helpful. We gathered a few and put them in the script, and then but he was the one who was like, this works, or this is what I would say, or I would actually say it like this. And it just, I mean, it's like charming upon charming upon charming.
And this is the last question. Talk about the cast and what they bring to the production. So Elizabeth, Paul, Catherine, Tiana.
So both Paul and Lizzie are masters of preparation, and they are united in that. I think one of the reasons that they work so well together is they're both so interested in being prepared and knowing what they're doing. They're like kind of good students in that way. And so that also translates to their investment in the actual show. Both of them, I pitched the scope of the show to them very early, and they were both so on board. And that's what you want more than anything from your actors, is for them to be excited about what the work is. And they were so excited and so committed to making it great. And then, you know, they really did their work to embody the different eras, to become so familiar with each of these sort of modes of performance that are very, very different than what they normally do in the MCU. Everything from their posture and how they carry themselves to like the level of their voice and the quality of their voice. And then of course the comedy piece of it, like, is just a whole different thing. From what they've done before in the MCU, and they were just so game. Catherine Hahn can do anything. She just can do anything, and it was like getting one of those like multi-purpose tools when you're like stranded on a deserted island. Like it was the most incredible gift, and we were like, you know, we were all already very excited about you know, the role, but then to have her take it on, we just like dialed everything up. We're like, it's got to be good enough for Catherine Hahn, which was just a really wonderful place from which to write. Tiana, her casting was so important because Monica is one of those characters that needs to say a lot without saying anything. She needs to communicate, you know, the depth of her feeling without you know, sort of breaking the facade of being, you know, really good at her job and being a professional. And so a lot of her performance is not on the page. And we were so lucky to have somebody with her talent come and bring so much to the unspoken moments. I mean, Kat Dennings is actually, Paul says this, Kat Dennings is funny in her bones. It sounds much more charming when Paul says it in his accent, but he's like totally right. Like, she's just funny, and I could write for her all day long, and so could the writer's room. Like, all of the Darcy jokes are just a pleasure to work on and live inside, and she's just wonderful to work with. Randall Park really made Jimmy Woo. I mean, I wasn't a part of that project, but he brought like this like dorky efficiency thing that, like, I don't know, I wouldn't even know how to describe it, but it's just so much fun to watch. And he is also a very prepared performer, and he's a very, very kind person. And I think that's probably my favorite piece of Jimmy, is that he's kind to his colleagues and respectful to his colleagues, because as a good worker and a responsible person, he respects that in others. And you know, I love seeing him in the show, because I mean, it's like, these are the kind of colleagues that I want in my life.